I'm here today with technology leader Timothy Chou. He's an author. He's been a lecturer at Stanford for 30 plus years. He's former president of Oracle. And today we're going to talk about something around technology. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Bets. Glad to be on your show.
All right. Hey, I've heard all about this IoT and 5G and all these technologies. If I am a creator of machines, why do I care about that stuff?
Well, that's actually a great question. Why would you care? And I think it's not really going to be about kind of saving money or things like that. I think it's really about making money from new revenue streams. And I genuinely believe it's possible for everybody who makes machines, whether they're healthcare machines, agriculture, construction, etc., to fundamentally double their revenues and quadruple their margins if they were to build digital service products.
Timothy, you got to tell me more about that. So click in one step in. Tell me more.
No problem. I think one of the things that people may not realize is that machines are increasingly becoming software defined. Just to use a good example, the new generation of Porsche Panamera actually has 100 million lines of software in it versus 2 million in the previous generation. Modern day MRI scanners have over 7 million lines of code. Combine harvesters are 6-7 million lines of software. So increasingly, these machines are becoming defined by software.
So is that a software-defined machine? Is that what you're describing?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think for the companies that make these machines, make construction machines, make agriculture, make healthcare machines, really to realize that as they're moving to becoming more defined by software, perhaps the answer to the question of how do I make money on this is taken by learning a lesson from my industry, the software industry.
So you got to tell me more about some of these lessons.
Yeah, well, in our world, there really have been three fundamental business models in the software world. The first was, I want to call it the disconnected model, meaning I sold you a software product, an ERP application, a database, etc., and then I charged you 20, 25, 26% of the initial purchase price for the service of that product. And what did that mean? That meant that I delivered you information about how to maintain or optimize the performance, availability, or security of that product. And just so you can think about it, Oracle in the year before it bought Sun, when it was purely a software company, generated 10 out of $12 billion of revenue on recurring service revenue. So this is a model very well understood by software companies around the world. That's model one. So what's model two? Model two is, hey, if I can connect to your machine, I can deliver you more personal and more relevant information because I now know what's going on your machine. And so starting with the hardware guys years ago, and then software companies have done this, they say, well, if I connect to your machine, I can deliver you better, more personal, more relevant information about how to maintain or optimize the performance, availability, or security of your product. And they all generated incremental revenue by being able to do this, which leads you to the last thing, which is if I can tell you how to maintain or optimize the performance, availability, or security of your product, then the last step, which is model three, is, well, why don't I just do that for you? And so what the common words are used are, I am now delivering you software, a software product as a service. And as we all well know, many of the high-growth software companies these days, whether that's ServiceNow or Salesforce or Zoom, etc., are delivering their software products in just that manner. And by the way, just to make a point of it, they fundamentally can change their business models to now saying, I'm going to sell you per transaction or per seat or per session, etc., which gives them enormous flexibility in being able to deliver their service on demand.
So if I'm a manufacturer of machines, what should I do then? Just like three business models, how I can double my revenues, quadruple my margins. What's my first step? What should I do?
Well, see, once you understand this fundamental idea that service and a digital service is information about how to maintain or optimize the performance, availability, or security of your front loader or your boom lift or whatever, right? I can now start making my way down this path. So Model 1, I'm delivering you service in a disconnected state. Most people don't realize this, but a company as big as General Electric actually generates 50% of their revenue from a recurring service model and 50% by selling you the product. Many folks in the construction business, building construction machines, they're nowhere near a 50-50 split, right? So if I start to do that by taking, and I'm the supplier of these machines, I know way more about how to maintain and optimize the performance, availability, and security than any, let's call it single individual. So I can begin there. The next step I take is, well, shit, if I can connect to those machines, I can deliver you more personal and more relevant because I know exactly how you're using that machine, Model 2, right? And I can charge you incremental for that. And by the way, just for you out there to do a quick piece of math, just come up with, take the price of your machine and just charge 1% a month for the digital service. Just 1% a month. And start looking at across your entire install base, because you could do this for all the front loaders, all the boom lifts, all the aerial lifts that you have in the field, right? You can do the math, not hard. I've done it. It's pretty easy to prove that you can double the revenues. And by the way, quadruple the margins because, oh, by the way, service revenue margins can be way higher than product revenue margins because fundamentally it's about information delivery, not a piece of iron. And that will set you up for the last major step, which is, business model 3, which is why don't I deliver my product as a service? And just so you can use an example, which we all kind of are aware of, is let's assume I'm a manufacturer of a car, an automobile. What would that business model look like if I wanted to deliver my car as a service? Well, pretty easy, right? I'd do it per ride. Well, there are people out there doing it today. They're called Lyft and Uber and Didi. They're delivering you a car as a price per ride. I don't think a lot of people have thought about it, but the most expensive thing in that ride is actually the driver. And so while autonomy is a fascinating intellectual challenge, the other side of it is if I can solve that problem, if I can increasingly automate, then I've now made it so that why am I ever going to buy a car, right? I'm just going to deliver my car as a service. And it will be fundamentally, if you want to think about it, a very different car. And that is where the revolution happens when you're able to do that.
Well, those are some insights, Timothy. Thank you very much. Any last thoughts before we close?
No, it's been a real pleasure being with you today, Vince.
All right. Thank you, Timothy. I look forward to our next episode.
Absolutely.